They wheeled him into the courtroom like a sideshow relic and told him, politely, to look small. The cameras hunched forward. The city tuned in to see the punchline. The clown with a history of chaos asked to say 4 little words that would make him ordinary again. "I am sorry." He said them, not grand, not theatrical, a thin human sound that lingered like smoke. For a moment, everyone believed the story they'd rehearsed for years, that beneath the paint, beneath the madness, there was only apology and defeat. Then he tilted his head, and the smile that followed wasn't the violent grin the tabloids remembered. It was careful, like a key turning. And when he spoke the next sentence, a single soft line that refused to be an apology. The room stopped breathing. The judge leaned forward, fingers steepled, eyes tired from years of watching men pretend to be sorry. "Say it clearly," he said, as if clarity could disinfect the past. The Joker stood at the podium in his wrinkled suit, the paint on his face faded enough to look like a bad memory. He swallowed, breathed once, and said the words again. "I am sorry." The courtroom exhaled. Somewhere, a woman sobbed in relief. Somewhere else, a man smiled because closure sells better than truth. The Joker's eyes moved across them all, slow and curious, like he was counting heartbeats. Then he added softly, "I'm sorry that you think this ends here." The sound that followed wasn't a gasp, it was silence. Thick, offended silence. The judge slammed the gavel. "You will control yourself," he snapped. "This court is not your stage." The Joker nodded. "Of course," he said, "it never is until it is." They took his words as provocation, not confession. That's how it always worked. Men in clean suits preferred a monster to a mirror. The prosecutor rose, voice sharp with practiced disdain, reminding the court of burned buildings, shattered families, and the city's long bruise. He spoke of the Joker as an infection, a symbol of chaos that must be cauterized. He spoke long enough to forget the man was still standing there, listening. When the Joker finally spoke again, he didn't raise his voice. "You've told them what I broke," he said. "Would you like to tell them what broke me?" A ripple of laughter tried and failed to start. The judge warned him once more, but something had shifted. An angle, a pressure. The Joker's gaze landed on the front row, on a thin man with polished shoes who wouldn't meet his eyes. The Joker smiled, smaller this time. "I used to believe apologies were lies we tell ourselves," he continued. "A way to keep sleeping. But today I mean it." He tapped his chest. "I'm sorry I learned too late that this city confuses quiet crimes with virtue." The prosecutor objected. The judge overruled, curious despite himself. The Joker went on, weaving words like a tightrope. He spoke of factories that hummed at night while neighborhoods choked, of signatures signed in daylight that did more harm than any laugh he'd ever laughed in the dark. He didn't name names. He didn't need to. The room knew its own reflection. A woman in the gallery stood up, shaking. "He's lying," she cried. "He's playing you." The Joker turned to her gently. "I always play," he said. "The difference is who keeps score." The judge called for order. Outside, sirens threaded the air. Inside, something colder than fear began to take shape. Recognition. The Joker's words weren't sharp. They were precise. Each sentence landed where it was supposed to. Loosening bolts no one remembered tightening. He paused, then bowed his head. "So yes," he said, "I apologize. To the people I hurt because I believed chaos was the only language you understood." His eyes lifted. "I was wrong." The wrongness of that admission unsettled them more than any threat. The prosecutor hesitated, sensing the wind change. The judge cleared his throat. "Is that all?" The Joker shook his head. "No," he said, "because apologies require repair." A murmur swept the benches. The judge warned him again. The Joker smiled again, the careful smile. "I don't mean forgiveness," he said. "I mean balance." At the back of the room, a door creaked. The thin man with polished shoes finally looked up, and for a fraction of a second, his composure cracked. The Joker caught it and held it like a note. "You see," the Joker said, voice steady, "I learned something important in cages, not about madness, about patience, about how systems protect themselves by teaching us to point at clowns while the magicians empty our pockets." The judge stood. "That's enough." The Joker raised a finger. "One last thing," he said. My next words aren't for you." He turned slowly to face the cameras. The red light blinked, obedient. There for the city that wanted a show. He leaned closer to the microphone, and for the first time the smile slipped. What remained was a man, tired, resolute, terrifyingly calm. "I forgive you," he said. The room froze. Somewhere, glass shattered, and outside the sirens stopped all at once. Forgiveness was not the word they expected. It hung in the air like a foreign object, heavy and misunderstood. The judge's mouth opened, then closed. The prosecutor's confidence faltered, just a notch like a step missed in the dark. The Joker straightened, hands folded, as if he had already said everything that mattered. They escorted him away quickly after that. Not violently, not gently, efficiently. The kind of efficiency that pretends neutrality while choosing sides. The cameras followed until the doors shut, then lingered on the empty podium, confused. Across the city, people argued about what they had just seen. Some laughed it off as another trick. Others felt something gnawing, a question they couldn't name. The Joker sat alone afterward in a room that smelled of disinfectant and old decisions. He hummed to himself, off-key, a tune from nowhere. A guard watched him through the glass, unsettled not by anger, but by the absence of it. The Joker looked peaceful. That was the problem. Hours passed. Somewhere downtown, a fundraiser unraveled into panic when donors began shouting at one another. In another part of the city, a boardroom meeting ended early, men leaving with pale faces and loosened ties, as if the walls had whispered secrets. No alarms, no explosions, just the quiet collapse of confidence. The Joker felt it before he heard about it. He always did. Chaos had a temperature, and tonight it was cooling, settling into something colder and more deliberate. He closed his eyes and remembered the first time he learned the city ran on unspoken rules, how cruelty dressed itself as policy, how betrayal learned to smile. He had tried screaming once. No one listened. Laughter had worked better, but laughter alone burned indiscriminately. Footsteps approached. The guard stiffened. The door opened, and a man entered who did not look like a victor. His suit was impeccable, his eyes hollowed by sleep he hadn't had. He sat across from the Joker without being invited. "You planned this," the man said. The Joker tilted his head. "Planned is such an ugly word," he replied. "I prefer inevitable." "You humiliated the court," the man hissed. "You turned them into fools." "They did that themselves," the Joker said softly. "I just held the mirror steady." The man leaned forward. "What do you want?" The Joker studied him the way a doctor studies a symptom. "Wanting is what got us here," he said. "I wanted noise. You wanted silence. Neither of us wanted justice. So I learned a better language." The man stood abruptly. "This won't save you." The Joker smiled, tired but sincere. "I wasn't trying to be saved." When the man left, he took something with him. Certainty, perhaps. The Joker returned to his humming, softer now. Outside, the city kept unraveling in small, dignified ways. Careers stalled. Alliances cracked. Names that had never been spoken aloud were suddenly spoken everywhere, not as accusations, but as questions. Questions are dangerous things. Days later, the verdict came. It was severe, designed to reassure. The Joker accepted it with a nod. The crowd watching from afar felt cheated. They had expected blood or fireworks, not this quiet ending. Commentators called it anticlimactic. They moved on. But endings are not events. They are processes. In the weeks that followed, the city changed its posture, not for the better, at first. There was anger, misdirected and loud. Then there was reckoning, slow and reluctant. Systems tightened, then strained. People began to notice patterns, to remember warnings they had laughed at. The Joker became less a monster and more a question mark, an uncomfortable footnote in conversations about responsibility. One night, alone again, the Joker scratched a message into the wall with a fingernail worn thin. Not a confession, not a threat, a reminder. He stepped back and admired it, then laughed quietly at how small it looked. A guard passed by and paused, reading it. "You think you won?" the guard asked. The Joker shook his head. "Winning is for games," he said. "This was a lesson." "What lesson?" "That apologies are meaningless unless they cost something." the Joker replied. And forgiveness? Forgiveness terrifies people who rely on guilt. The guard moved on, unsettled. Years later, when the city told the story again, they would argue about the Joker's motives. Some would say he manipulated them. Some would say he changed them. The truth would sit between those versions, unclaimed. On the last night anyone heard his laughter, the Joker looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "I'm still sorry." Then he smiled, not wide, not wild, but honest, because somewhere beyond the walls, the city was finally learning to apologize to itself. And somewhere in that uneasy silence, the city realized the truth it tried to bury. Monsters aren't always born from madness, but from the injustices we learn to ignore. If this story made you question who the real villain was, then the Joker's last smile did its job. Stay with us, because some lessons don't end when the story does.